Okie dokie. We got some headlines to get through from across the state, and I warned you in the offing that we're going to start with some bummer headlines.
Yes.
So just know that these are not all bummer headlines, but we are going to start with some bummer headlines because we can't not start with it. It's been a real bad couple weeks in the state of Texas.
It has.
For just tragedies, and unfortunately, this comes down Sunday. There was if you didn't hear, there was a mass shooting in Northwest Austin. And you're probably wondering, well, why are you guys talking about it here on this very program? And the reason is that one of the victims, it was confirmed, Austin police have not confirmed it, but Elgin ISD has confirmed that one of the victims, of the three victims, was Willie Simmons, the linebacker from Elgin, the North Texas signee. He and another former student, Alyssa Broderick, were among the three victims. He was a captain at Elgin High and a member of the National Honor Society. He was an two-time All-District honors. There are reports, and I don't know how important this is. There are reports that they were dating, that he and Alyssa Broderick were dating. Seth Luttrell put out a statement where he talked about how Willie Simmons is, quote, Willie Simmons is exactly the kind of man that every coach wants to recruit. His athletic talent was obvious, but his personal character, his selfless attitude, and his passion for life made him a natural leader and the perfect teammate. They have arrested Stephen Broderick, 41. I don't feel there are reports out there that this has something to do with this is some sort of domestic violence situation. We don't have all the facts right now, but what we do know, sadly, is that one of the three victims killed in Austin's mass shooting on Sunday was Elgin's linebacker Willie Simmons, the North Texas signee. That, of course, comes on the heels of, if you remember, I believe last week, we talked about Tony Evans. Tony Evans, the Lancaster player, and the Wyoming signee who was shot and killed in Dallas at a hotel party. And then you remember Ty Jordan was killed on Christmas Day. That all goes up against another story, sadly, that's in a truly just shocking story. There was on Saturday, early Saturday morning, 2 a.m., so if you want to call it Friday night, you can. There was a shooting in Mart, the tiny town of Mart, and a couple of the let's see, there were two killed in this shooting. One of them was Sabian Kubica, who was 22. He played his high school football at Riesel, and then Jacob Ibarra, who was 20. He played high school football at Mart. Obviously, both very sad. What has made this even more jarring is that they have made an arrest and made a charge of capital murder for former Houston linebacker and Mart standout Zamar Curvin. He's 21. He has been arrested and charged with capital murder in connection with a double homicide. This is according to KWTX down there in the Waco area. And yeah, Curvin played 3 seasons for Houston. He played 3 seasons for Mart. He was dismissed in December 2020. Curvin played 20 games as a member of the Cougars, starting 5 games as a sophomore. Now arrested for capital murder in Mart. Just a terrible, terrible story coming out of Central Texas there. So yeah,
gut-wrenching.
It's rough weekend there. So okay, those are bummer headlines.
Our thoughts going out to each of those communities as well.
Most certainly. Absolutely. Those are bummer headlines. We're going to put in a hard cut. We're going to say, all right, we acknowledge how important those are. Let's get to admittedly less important things.
Yes.
But things that are probably less bummerific.
Yes.
If we will.
A little bit more positive.
Let's talk about college football, and let's talk about the FCS ranks.
The bracket is set.
Because it's bracketology time.
Oh, God. I have, instant PTSD.
It's bracketology time. The FCS playoffs bracket is out, and the number 2 team in the bracket,
yeah,
the Sam Houston Bearcats. Of course, they came out. They beat Incarnate Word this week to finish undefeated, 6-0. South Dakota State is the number 1 seed. That is probably not a surprise, especially after they beat North Dakota State 27-17 on Saturday. So the first round matchup, Sam Houston, I should say, will host Monmouth, 11 a.m. Saturday at Bowers Stadium. Should they beat them, the Bearcats will face the winner of North Dakota State and Eastern Washington for a spot in the national semifinals. Getting North Dakota State on your side of the bracket is no funsies, but you're going to have to beat somebody like that eventually. But yeah, number 3, James Madison, sits on the other side of the bracket. Jacksonville State got the 4th seed over on the right side of the bracket. So,
And that's just down the road.
And of course, the 2021 FCS Championship game is going to be May 16th at Toyota Stadium in Frisco.
So we're going to need Sam Houston to go ahead and punch their ticket in for us.
Unfortunately, Sam Houston is the only team from Texas to make it to the FCS playoffs. There's a chance that if Incarnate Word had beaten Sam,
that they
might have gotten an at-large. That would have been a really impressive resume booster. They would have needed to really come out there and I think beat them impressively. They lost the game. It was kind of a non-issue. So the FCS season for everyone except Sam Houston is over, but Sam Houston still alive. So 11 a.m. Saturday. I would presume this game's going to be televised, at least on ESPN Plus. But 11 a.m. Saturday at Bauer Stadium, it'll be Sam Houston and Monmouth in the first round of the FCS playoffs. So keep an eye on that. We'll talk more about this on Wednesday with Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. But the NCAA, this was earlier last week, I guess it was maybe Friday, they announced that the recruiting dead period, which has been 15 months of the recruiting dead period, will end on June 1st.
Let's go.
June 1st. That means that you can have official visits. That means that people can get in the doors. That means you can have normal recruiting visits, things like that, campus visits, etc. So the dead period is ending on June 1st after nearly 15 months. So that is, I think that's very good news in my opinion.
Oh man, I'm so excited for those kids too.
Yes.
Like that's the big. It's one thing for us to be able to talk about it or Powers, being excited for it, but for those kids to finally be able to go out and do their actual visits and stuff, how exciting is that?
Most certainly. The other thing for me that I think is important is that I do think that will probably mean that whereas last year you remember the NCAA granted a blanket eligibility waiver to everybody.
Yes.
That means that's probably a one-time thing.
Yes, I would think
get
so.
the feeling that now they are lifting it. That's probably the step towards returning to a normal sense of normalcy in the football world, where this year counts towards your eligibility. You're not going to get it next year. So
which is good. The train is back on the tracks.
Yes, March 13th, 2020 was when the recruiting dead period went into effect. And now it will be lifted on June 1st, 2021. Crazy.
Real quick update to our friend Ryan said that you can watch the Sam Houston game on ESPN 3.
Bang.
So boom, it's
ESPN
on TV.
3. That's good. If we weren't going to the barbecue championships, we could have a watch along. But we are going to the barbecue championships,
which I'm super pumped for. Sorry, Sam Houston.
Finally, a couple of high school notes from across the state. These coming down today. A big news coming out of Texoma.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that Sherman's looking for a new head coach. J.D. Martinez has been named the head coach at Bridgeport. Bridgeport has hired J.D. Martinez, the head coach at Sherman, to be their next head coach. A pretty good get there for Bridgeport. Bridgeport was a job that I had heard a lot of chatter about.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty attractive job. And a lot of people were after that. J.D. Martinez is the hire there, so Sherman is open. Of note, that means that we'll have an entirely new Battle of the Axe.
Because Denison.
Sherman and Denison both making coaching changes. So up there in Texoma land, it's been a busy offseason. And finally, news out of East Texas that Paul Pewitt is open. Paul Pewitt is open again.
After 1 year.
Richard Strickland has resigned after one season. Paul Pewitt is open again. If you remember, Tristan Abram left Mejia to go out east to, Greg, don't start a sentence without knowing how it ends.
These 1-year coaching changes start to run together so bad.
Hold on. He went from Mejia to Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Right.
Yep.
So a lot of movement there. So that means that they will have Paul Pewitt will have their third head coach in 3 years.
After going to a state championship.
And by the way, Tristan Abram, I believe, was only there for 2 years.
Yep.
So it's been a revolving door out there in Paul Pewitt in Omaha. So Paul Pewitt is now open as Richard Strickland has resigned after 1 year. Of course, you can find all the latest news and notes in football across the state at texasfootball.com.